Hello there, Captains, and welcome to another episode of Game Fact Files. In today's episode, we will prove a comprehensive guide that unpacks the strategic considerations and analyzes the brainstorming process behind every choice behind sealed format. This video serves as the foundational structure, and the guide presented will prove invaluable for each forthcoming set release in the game. The sealed format stands out as an excellent entry point for One Piece. With just 6 boosters, you can dive into the game, making it an ideal choice for learning and honing your deck building skills. It serves as the introduction to Bandai organized play for many players, offering a common and accessible starting point. There are no banned or restricted cards, and you have the freedom to include as many copies of each card as you like from the pool you open. All other card restrictions still apply as normal. For example, if you play Shura, you can't fetch a card that is not a Sky Island. Upon cracking open your packs, the primary task is to scout for potential game changers, often dubbed as bombs. Well, to be completely honest, the absolute initial step involves checking for any manga cards and briefly setting aside concerns about the event. But let's shift our focus to those impactful bomb cards. Bombs are the cards you can rely to win the game. They can practically win games if they're not answered or killed. Cards like Odin or Newgate generate so much value and leave your opponents scrambling on how to deal with them. This is where the element of luck plays a crucial role in the sealed format. One day, you might get a good secret rare, while the next day, all your rares could be garbage. Next, I classify the cards into 3 distinct piles. The initial pile is contained with the cards intended for use in the deck, including the potential candidates. The second pile encompasses filler cards, while the third is designated for cards deemed unsuitable for use, commonly referred to as garbage cards. These are typically cards that provide little to no value during gameplay, lack synergies with other cards, and their stats are low. I recommend watching evaluation videos of the cards before participating in a sealed event to gain a better understanding of which cards are optimal for your deck. Inside your must pile, besides bombs, there are some categories that you should include in your sealed deck. The first one is removals. Removal cards are any cards that can take your opponent's threats out of play. Whether it's a card that kills a character like X-Drake, or an event like Red Rock that puts an opponent's bomb back at the bottom of his deck, these are the cards you rely on to stop your opponents from winning the game. The next category are the cards with 2000 counter that will of course be included in the deck. Besides being your best defense cards on your opponent's attacks while playing on curve, 2K counter can provide some info about your attacks as well. If you look at the sets, you will notice that every set has a different amount of 2K cards. OP04 had 13 of them, while OP03 only had 7. Considering you all open the same amount of boosters and checking their rarity, you might have in mind that some of them are more accessible than others being common, while others are super rare and won't be in all of your opponent's decks. In some scenarios, this info can help you decide if you are going to swing for 5,000 and 7,000, or sometimes for 6,000 with both of your attacks. The next cards inside our deck are blockers. They save you from attacks and can make your opponent lose tempo spending Dawn to get rid of them. Every blocker played on the correct turn can disrupt your opponent's plan for next round. Most of them have at least 1000 counter, so they always find a use in the game. In case you want to learn more about tempo, I'm going to leave a card at the top and also a link at the end of the video in case you want to check it out. The last category inside our playable cards are vanilla characters. Remember that in limited formats, all you have to do is play cards that will take a bit more value than your opponent. Characters with raw stats like Nora or Thatch give you the advantage that if they are played on curve and your opponent doesn't answer them with a bigger character, they will not only going to deal damage if your opponent doesn't spend cards or blockers, but the most important thing is that he will need to invest Dawn to get rid of them. Comparing with a character like Marco can get a free attack from the opponent's leader, while Nora will need at least 2 Dawn investment to be attacked from the same leader. Making your opponent spend 2 or more Dawn there, you are gaining a great tempo advantage, since he will only have 4 Dawn left to play cards. While on your next turn, you can deploy a 7 Dawn character and make him lose the board control. Once you've finished organizing your cards into piles and have selected the ones you intend to include in your deck, it's crucial to arrange them by cost, to assess your Dawn curve. This is by far the most important thing in deck building, as it ensures you have a balanced distribution of cards across different Dawn costs, allowing you to play something each turn whenever possible. Failing to do so can result in tempo loss. For instance, having options for turn 2, but nothing for turn 3 disrupts your momentum. In limited formats, recovering from dead rounds is challenging, and sometimes you will need to use cards that weren't your first priority. The Dawn curve in most of the cases should always be in the middle, since it's always preferable to play something at 3 and 5 Dawn if you go first, or 4 and 6 Dawn if you are playing second. The cards that cost 1 or 2 Dawn are usually low-cost blockers or events, and the cards with 3 or 4 Dawn are usually early tempo plays with 5,000 power or more. The cards that cost 7 or more are usually the bombs and the late game threats, and that's why you should consider playing only a few of them and not having them bricked on your hand. In cases where you are going to play a more aggressive deck with leader like Zoro, you will need to have more 1 Dawn or 2 Dawn cost characters, so your Dawn curve would probably look like this. I'm going to drop another card here in case you want to check my video about the Dawn curve, and let's talk about leaders now. These two are frequently favored choices in sealed play due to their formidable capabilities. Kid excels at gaining tempo with his double swinging ability, capable of eliminating almost any threat on the board by discarding a card. Meanwhile, Katakuri stands out for his ability to deal 7,000 damage with just 1 Dawn, all while manipulating triggers, whether your opponent's or your own. In truth, Kid almost never disappoints me, but when selecting a leader, it's crucial to assess your card pool first. If the newly released set boasts numerous early drops, Zoro might be the optimal choice. Conversely, if your pool includes cards like Momonosuke or You're the One Who Should Disappear, along with Wano-themed cards, considering Enel to exploit his ability could be a strategic move. If you find yourself with gaps in your deck after arranging it by cost, it's the perfect opportunity to consult your filler or garbage list for potential synergies. For instance, if you have a card like Hacha, which bounces a character with a cost of 3 or less, you could consider including cards that provide a cost reduction to a character. Combining these cards can create powerful combos that may not be effective when used individually. The last category you will need to consider when creating your deck are counter events. While your opponent can somehow guess your card on hand if he sees you not using all Dawn on your turn, there are some cards that provide great tempo in the game, like Spiderweb that allows you to save one of your characters by setting it as active. Back in OP02, I won the finals just with an Onigiri that not only saved me from a 9,000 attack, but also allowed me to put an Usopp in play and set lethal on next turn. Remember that in sealed formats, you aren't playing against regular decks, and your opponent will probably not have the cards to answer everything. That was all for today, Captains. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know if you're enjoying sealed formats, and which one is your favorite leader. And I will see you in the next episode of Game Fact Files.